So we're back at it, number 5 in the streaming series of rebuilding a vibe-coded app, which is a HR app. It's meant to be like an app for allowing a cafe to manage its workers and allow them to do forms and HR docs and things like that. Let's just look at our setup today. So where I got to last time is I did have login in the cloud. So we do have this publicly accessible login, and I have been able to log in with a Google account. Continue with Google, I should do. And then when you log in, you have the we have this style guide. So this is our brutalist baseline. And our style guide is set up in such a way. At the moment, it's using Tailwind. I'm not actually happy with it, but with the setup and the architecture of it, and the design, I don't care about the design. The design is intentionally just going for weird. And what else do I have? So I've got the local app running. It's a bit crap, vibe coded. For example, this little tab here shows that there's an authenticated style guide. I don't care. Like, this is not useful. This should just be a login box. And you tend to see that with these vibe coded stuff is just extra context information that just no one uses, and like no one's really like, it's bad UX. No one's communicating anything through this little box here. Also didn't like how the default style has these background shadows, but I mean, I really just want this to be really basic, and I asked for basic and it gave me kind of like something that's fairly opinionated in my opinion, whatever. What am I doing here? So what else have I got open? I've got a couple of back-end pages that I'm ready to go. So I'm able to, I've just got some tabs for the local emulators, and I got some tabs for the Google console, the Firebase console, and then I have my my code open in Z. So this is my code base here, AC Pontify. That's the main gist of what we've got going at the moment. So when I was doing this last time, I felt like I wasn't entirely, like, there was a few things I wanted to fix up, and so what I did is I did a little bit of reading about how emulators work and in Firebase, and the difference between, so normally when I'm running an application, I'll run something like pnpm run dev, and in the background, what's that doing in the background? Let's just pull that up. Packages, JSON. So usually in the background, I've got pnpm run dev. It's running Vite, so it's running my build tools. I've got build, preview, so forth. And what I didn't, in diving into Firebase, what I wasn't really clear about was the balance, the difference between running the emulators and running my own dev script. So I've sort of settled on the fact that I want to run my emulators separately. I also wanted to make sure when I ran my emulators, because something I noticed if I open my firebase.json, I noticed that it wants to use these ports, but if say if I was doing some AI coding or whatever, and it had opened up ports in a conversation, then these ports are getting locked and it's assigning new ports. I don't know. I like to kind of know what ports is going to be used from the outset. I'm still getting a feel for that. So I'm assuming these ports are what's going to be used when I run my emulators, and then I'm assuming that my app's going to know to talk to these ports in a local environment. Cool. So there's a few assumptions there because this is my first Firebase project. I'm just kind of finding my way through it. So if I do Firebase emulator start, now this should start all of the emulators I've got defined. So hosting and auth. And then if I grab the emulator UI here and jump over to here, which is this, and just reload that. So it's giving me all the emulators that are turned on. So I've got authentication turned on. I have like a hosting emulator turned on, 5002. Let's just view the website there. So there's my Pontify. So the fact is that I didn't start my app here. So when I look at this and I see it running on 5002, so that is the app that we're building. What if I run pnpm run dev as well? And check this out. Do I get 2? Right. So it makes my local pnpm run dev redundant by the looks of it. So me doing this. Oh, I better close some doors because that's background sound will be painful. 1 second. Plastic dead air. So me and my naive approach to, hey, I'm building a web app is assuming I'm going to run, npm run dev, but in actual fact, that's redundant. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to close that out, go here. So there's my local server. Here's my emulators dashboard. What else is in the emulators dashboard? So there's my authentication emulator, and I thought I had another one. Maybe I don't. What is it? Auth hosting, sure. Okay. All right, so if I go to my authentication emulator, I've got so whenever this starts, I think it loses all of the users that I've added, but I should be able to add, let's just add a manual user here. So Jared, and email is jared@example.com. And I think we need to enter one more thing when I was testing password authentication, password 123. So jared@example.com and password 123 and save. So here I should be able to go, I'm on my local email password, jared@example.com, and I'm just going to tell one password to not show on this page, and then yes, thank you, and password 123. Am I doing this right? PARSSWORD 123. Sign in with email. And that is not, so that's not working. It was working when I was doing it on this domain, so I might just try that, and let's start. What was it? PNPM run dev. Okay, let's try this and see if it is running on this one. Email and password, jared@example.com. Sorry. And PASSWORD 123, signing with email. Right, so I am getting failures there on my local, whereas I wasn't getting them before. So if I just come back to edit this user, I was getting an error message. So something definitely failed. And again, let's just tell password manager to not show on this page. What if I do this. No. It's a bit annoying. No Google.com account exists with the auth emulator. Let's try adding a new account here. I was hoping to not have to muck around like this. I'm just wondering if I do this. Oh, sign in with google.com. That's interesting. So this has signed me, okay, that's good. So it's signed me in locally using my Google account. If I go back to the emulator, does it adds a user there? Pretty good. Like that's cool. Like, so I've just signed in. I hadn't tested this. I hadn't had this working locally before. So now I have local sign in with Google. I am a little bit annoyed that I'm going to leave the local test users alone for the moment. I want to be able to log in with these local users. I might give it one more go. So there's jared@example.com, password 123. Yeah. There's no enable or disable, is there? Disabled phone, not verified. Okay, let's say it's verified. Let's do that. And let's try it again. So here I'm logged in my local machine. So Jared. Jesus. Go away. Jared@example.com. Password 123. No. So I might just have a quick look at the console because that felt like a JavaScript error. No. I get nothing. On that, whereas I did before. So I am going to leave that for the moment. Are there any filters on? No. So I feel comfortable about one thing. Let's say if I log out here and come back here. So I'll go back to my terminal. I don't want to run this vite command manually if I don't have to. I want to use this or the emulator if I can. So I've come back here to the emulator URL, the 5002 port, and continue with Google. And okay, 107 is not authorized. Very, very interesting. So I've got something. So I don't like this being out of whack. I don't like this really. I'm not comfortable with this. Like, how come the native emulator is failing, but when I run it with vite, it's passing. So I am going to ignore this for the moment, but this is definitely something that I need to come back to. And I just want to find my way with Firebase before I really decide what I want to do with this. I'm not going to debug it here. All right, so I'll go back to the one that is working, which is my vite build, continue that with Google. And again, I don't know, there's something about the setup which I'll discover at some point, not today. And that one password is really annoying. I'm actually going to disable it on this browser here. Edge extension. Let's disable it. All right. So I do want to just talk through the code at the moment and some of the changes that I'm making or working towards. I have this local. I really like the idea of a code base shipping with an example file of all the variables that are likely to be used both locally, not locally and in production and stuff, but it may be that a lot of these are local, so maybe this is just not something that needs to run Firebase in the cloud. But I do like to have them all explicitly listed with safe variables. I did look up this Firebase API key in the documentation because I was concerned that it was secret. And here are the most important things about API keys for Firebase services. They are public by design. They only identify your Firebase project and app to those services. Authorization is handled through Google Cloud IAM permissions, Firebase security rules, and Firebase app checks. So I do have that key there. And then I have my env.local where this is where I was playing last time about having username password available locally. I am going to scrap this because if I can seed users in the emulator, I will do that, and I feel like I'm trying to work around that, so I'm actually just going to trash that. And there's also this script called seed local auth, and for the same reason I'm going to scrap it because I'm not going to seed that until I get a better sense of how I want to do that local development. So let's get rid of that file. I was looking through, so my only files here that are kind of active production system files would be this app.js and this styles.css. The styles.css is what I would call dodgy Tailwind, and that's because all of my templates are all separate HTML files, so I'd be doing a lot of repeating classes if I put Tailwind classes in all these. And I kind of decided that I am going to move to a framework because I do plan to have quite a lot of routes in this application, and so I want to be reusing templates as much as possible. So that would then mean that a lot of the Tailwind, or a lot of these apply classes. So this is like the definition of bad Tailwind architecture. You've got a class in a file and you're applying Tailwind classes to it. You failed to co-locate the style and the form. And the whole idea of Tailwind is that you want to put the style where the structure is. So if I was to come in here and find login form, it's going to be on one of these pages, index login form. So if I was to come into login form and go like this, like that's co-location of style and form and structure. So if I wasn't going to move to a framework where I was getting reusable templates, at this stage I would scrap Tailwind and just go to a native CSS architecture. My app.js, I looked through it and okay, so there's a few changes to the file, such as, trying to use these local keys where possible, and I feel like this is fine, but I do feel like I might be stepping on the toes of the way Firebase wants to do its emulation. I might be trying to solve something that Firebase already solves with local emulators. So I'm cautiously skeptical about this setup. Like this Firebase emulator origin, it's allowing me to override this value if possible, but you notice that we did 2 logins and one worked with one and the other and one didn't work. So the Vite is injecting variables, I believe. The Vite config is injecting variables which are allowing my Google auth, my emulator, to work, and but if it's not injecting this, my Google auth is not working locally. So I've broken it. Put that to the side for the moment. I'm going to commit what I've got here, and because really what I want to do is just muck around and just tackle tasks one at a time that I feel like tackling. I don't want to get too... I've been doing a little bit of research between videos, so I'm not spending all of my time just sitting there just headbutting the wall about how I want to do this local setup. So cd ac git add git ci. So start of video 5. So there's our baseline. So what do I want to do right now? Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of it. So I want to change this app to be a, I think we're going to go, I'm tossing up between React and Svelte in terms of the framework that I use. I'm inclined to go with Svelte because I kind of feel like with React sometimes it can be a little bit, you want to be, it gives you a few options because there's been a few different architectural patterns that have emerged and come along with React. And this is like sort of from an outsider point of view, but I kind of feel like with React, you kind of sometimes go, hey, I can see I've Googled for this pattern and I'm going to do this pattern. And then suddenly you're watching a video and Theo is saying, hey, we don't use that pattern anymore. There's a new pattern with React. Da, 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 da. I think Svelte is more opinionated, so I'll kind of don't want my patterns to change if someone else vibe codes on this app. So I'm almost thinking of using Svelte for that reason, because I've used it before. Seemed pretty straightforward as far as the templating framework. It's got routing, which is what I want, and the rest is just go from there. So the first thing I'm just going to start doing is jump over to where do I want to go? I go to my chat, okay, and let's start a new conversation. Whoops. I actually want to use Super Whisper for this. All right. I have an app here which is using just index.html files and loading an app.js into it. I want to switch this up to be a Svelte application. And so what I want you to do is take the current index HTML files and move them into routes in a Svelte app. And I also want to take all of the applied Tailwind classes, and rather than applying them in Tailwind CSS, I want them to be co-located with the templates that are being used in the Svelte app. And also, make sure that you update everything to work natively with Firebase. I don't know if that last sentence was necessary, but I feel like it might add just enough context to see if there are any decision points that come into play. Look, it should be optional for me to say that last thing. So let's give that a run. I am semi-inclined. I'm just going to double check that my app is still working in the cloud. So let's just come here. This is my cloud version. Log out of this and let's continue with Google. So so one thing I found quite interesting here is that I could add manual users. So I have these are the users that have authenticated against my cloud application. And I did notice that I can add users that aren't, like these users show up if I just log in with Google Authenticator, but then I manually added this user. So I'm not even sure I would use users like this, just hard-coded users yet, but I am certainly interested in an app that works both ways. So let's come back to the app. Where are we over here? Email and passwords. So Simon@example.com, and I don't remember what I set as password, so let's reset the password to send a password reset email. Simon@example.com. Let's delete that. Add a new user. And I'll just make the password the same as the email address. All right. Simon and Simon. Yeah, so I currently don't have login in the cloud here. Let's just double check, see if I have login via Google. All right, I'm logged in via Google. Let's just see how chat's going. This felt's not installed yet. Yep, do all that stuff. It's done some verification of my Firebase app. It's loading skills. It's good. Okay, it's asking me to run. Do you want me to use PM to download? Yep. Do you want to allow? Yes. I'm also switching Firebase Auth from hosted script imports to the Firebase Web SDK package. So the Svelte bundle owns the Firebase integration natively through Vite, instead of loading SDK modules at runtime. That's good. I had noticed that in the code that it was just like, you know, basically hard coding these URLs to Google static JavaScript. I'm pinning the plugin to Vite 7 compatible releases. Do you want to allow, let's deny that. Use Vite Beta 8. Let's steer it. I'm leaning towards using, happy to use a beta, not even going into production anytime soon. So obviously I'm going to potentially get a few bugs and things like that, but one thing I noticed with I have a strategy with JavaScript libraries. Do not get like caught on a paradigm, like on the previous paradigm of some sort of architecture. So there might be like a major architectural change in, say, a React package or something, and suddenly it's using React Router instead of what it previously used, and you're stuck on the previous one, and what happens is your AI often goes in circles trying to resolve dependencies because some of your packages are preferring the new way and some packages are not, still preferring the old way. So I tend to lean towards pushing to the new way, especially if you're setting up a new project, to avoid, just kind of force your dependency resolution in your packages to be as much as latest as possible, and then only pin or go backwards if you have to. Okay, do you want to allow? Yes, I do want to allow that. While I'm just doing that, I'm just thinking about we've got unsaved changes here, so let's just close these so that we don't get a conflict with what happens with the LM. So I'm finishing Svelte route components, and then I'll update the Firebase hosting to send all app routes through the Svelte entry point. Okay, so it's added Svelte version 7. Oh, Svelte version 5 and a Vite plugin for Svelte version 7. What else might have changed? There's a config change in Vite. There's added an extra plugin, Svelte plugin. It's fine. Okay, here's my new directory, my new Svelte app. So we have an app.svelte, which is our primary entry point to our Svelte app. Now, I've used Svelte on another project. So a lot of this stuff, if I've described it incorrectly, feel free to let me know. I'm trying to describe it from a naive framework, from a naive standpoint. Okay, here's my routes. So I've got my routes are defined as constants. That's fine. And then I set a route. I have to set a route object with all my different routes. That's good. Great. Then if I go into routes and I go to, say, my style guide page, I can see, yep, this looks good. So then so it's moved, as messy as it is, it's moved the Tailwind into the app. I may still, so what I want to do is see how this is. So see how you have the style guide, and you've got this article with kind of like the design of the article HTML tag, and then you've got H2 with inline style and import with inline style. So this H2 style should be moved into the main CSS file. You don't want to repeat. I don't want to repeat that every time I have a H2, and I don't want to repeat this every time I have an input. These should all be styled components, but to start with, I'm just getting it all inlined. That's great. Fortunately, this is a little bit boring. Making one small Firebase SDK hardening change for Vite's dev reloads. Just occurs to me that I should just stop my application at the moment. Okay, verification passes. PM run build successfully. I did not start any local dev service, so let's try and run dev. So there's and then let's run emulators. Okay. Okay, so here's our local host, and let's see if we can still log in with Google. No, we get an error at the moment, so I'll just inspect and see if that's a console error. Nope. All right, I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to use the URL provided by the emulators. All right, so I currently don't have Google login. So it looks like it's going to be a bit of a debugging one. That is fine. Do I have, well, that wasn't working before, so we'll leave that. Let's see if we have any errors coming up. Oh, did I stop that? I did stop that. So login page. So here, because I've stepped away from kind of the out of the box index.html approach with an app.json. I've got something broken in terms of it, and so I'm just going to kind of naively like push forward, see if I can get my login, see if I can get the LM to get my login to work. That also runs. I'll just make sure that I'm doing everything. So pnpm run build. Okay, so the events like not attached to the Google, continue with Google. On the login page, the JavaScript event seems to not be attached to the Google login button. Let's go back to the emulators. So every time I restart the emulator, I have to add users. Okay, so it says it's fixed it. All right. What's happened here? 1.0. So let's just try and fix that. Let's try and double check that I can log in with 5174 port. I can. So let's give that as a task. So with my emulators, hosting is port 5002. So I access this with 127.0.0.1 :5002. But I also have a Vite local dev build, and it uses 5174 port. And when I access this port and click login to Google, it does log in successfully to Google. But if I use the 5002 port that's run on the emulator, it doesn't, it gives me an error that 127.0.0.1 isn't valid domain, but they both seem to be 127, so I'm not sure why the emulator version of the app isn't working. All right, let's give that a crack. And what else has changed recently? Has anything changed in the app since I did that work? Package manager, dependencies, and so forth. README. It's added the information about it being a Svelte app. It's fine. It's deleted the old public directory. And where is the CSS lib? No, app.css. So what I want it to do is add in a an applied section for all of the main classes. So it should be styling. It should be styling all the H1s, the buttons, the inputs here, and not inline. So I'll do that later. So the difference is 5002 serving the built dist app, while 5174 is Vite dev. And the built app had dev is false, so it was not authenticating, not connecting. If you want to run against the real Firebase backend 2, All right, I'm not mentally passing that, but let's see if this is working. It's just, I think this is auto loading. Yeah, whenever the app rebuilds, might just test that that's true. So come to, let's go into the svelte. Let's just make a change there. No. Just trying to trigger a change here to see if it rebuilds. We'll find out soon enough. All right. That's now working. Cool. So what I want to do is I want to kill the Vite command because I don't want to have two local domains logging in. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to kill this. I'll kill this seed file, which I deleted, so I don't want that command. Emulators, I want to I want to do Firebase. Whoops. I want to do Firebase emulator start as my dev command. Build, we'll leave build as, I'm not sure. I'll leave all this in place as it is. So we're just going to use this emulators to start our emulators. So let's cancel that out and let's close this tab. All right, and restart. Let's start from scratch. So if I go pnpm emulators, as clunky as a command as it is, okay, that starts all my emulators. I can then go to, okay, there's my emulators suite, my authentication. I then come into the site on 5002. Yep, 5002. And continue with Google. And that is working. Thank you. Okay, Simon at hobbs.id AU, Hobbs, leave everything blank. And there I'm logged in. That's good. I feel like that's a nice baseline where we've now got this running as a Svelte app. Not sure if I can. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of these pages won't work, but we'll tackle that next. What I want to see, if I want to do a deployment and see if everything works. So Firebase deploy. How about we put a version in of our app in the login? Put a version number in the env and display it. Is it the env? Put a version number somewhere that Firebase can read it and display it in the login form. So I want to get into a pattern of doing these deployments and seeing that my remote site is updating. I'm reading, I'll wire the version in through the static app build rather than adding another service. Yeah, I'm not sure what adding another service would have been in this situation. I just want to, is to keep the package JSON and have the Firebase hosting build emit a version JSON and use the same value in the login screen. Sure. Okay, so we should see a new version.json pop up here somewhere. Oh, it's passing it. Yep. Hello, source. Where is this version.json? Firebase hosting build emits a version.json. And then there's a package.json. Okay, so that's actually good. I like that. So it's going to use this version in the a package.json. Let's just make it something random. And we will run that locally because we should see that in our local build in theory. So let's just run the emulators and log out. There's version, see that version is different to what I actually set. So let's try running the build, npm build, and run emulators again. Okay, so there's 0.13 and we should see that in our build. Okay, so version 0.13 and let's do a deployment now. I should just use a different tab. So Firebase deploy. I'm really still feeling out the different, like where I want these commands to run. Like, should everything be a pnpm command, or, you know, can I just do everything with Firebase commands? Ironically, my way of learning is to hack at something first and then go, oh, now I know what to watch, and then I'll go and read some documentation and watch a video. Let's have a look. That's my local. That's a local. That's, where's my app gone? Oh, there's my version. All right, now I've deployed this. I want to double check that I can still log in with Google. All right, cool. So next, what I want to do is I just want to keep hacking at this style a little bit. In Tailwind, you have layers, and in those layers you can define styles that apply globally, and I want to put more work into those layers by moving the inline styles from the templates when they apply to elements like inputs and tags like, you know, headings and so on, and move them into the layers in the Tailwind in CSS. Yeah. All right, let's run that. And let's just do a quick commit while that's running. So let's get that out of the way. So what we have now is, you can see we've deleted in our commit, we've deleted all of our index.html files. We've bootstrapped a new Svelte app. We have our routes and so forth, and a few other modifications that have happened in the other files. That looks pretty good to me. So added Svelte, converted to Svelte app. Tailwind, still dodgy. Just push that up. I don't think I would have caught anything in this current. I think it's still doing its investigation. Okay, I found a small Svelte app with repeated hard edge form, heading, table, and panel classes. I'm going to keep component-specific layout classes in the template, so that's good, and centralize the reusable element styles into the app CSS. That's good. It already has a global base styles, so this is a clean refactor rather than a new styling system. Sure. The main change is introducing named layer classes like panel, section heading, app control, data table, status tag, plus native defaults for headings, labels, inputs, selects, tables, and focus states. I'm going to reserve my judgment on that. I would say it's applying Tailwind layers. If it works, it works. I just want to see this. I just want to see it clean, really. I want to be able to look and see a nice mix of global style and local style. All right. What are we doing after this? Okay, the first pass is in place. Checking for leftovers. So I want to kill some of this style. Not too much. I hate this, I hate this shadow, so we're going to remove that. So I'll get ready with that command. Remove the tailwind, the shadow from the style guide. Yeah, that looks fine. Oh, and also in the login screen. Now, wait a second. There's our login. Let's refresh that. Yeah. Remove the big black panel on the right. Just need the login form. This where it says, I did not start a local dev service. In the last video, we added to the agents.md, never to run local services. Now let's have a look. We haven't lost it. Oh, that's in the remote. So we'll just close that. Actually, we'll leave that open. What's it doing? The requested changes are in. Now, is it building? Is it building whenever I ask it to do these things? Do we have nothing? We have an error? Let's try building. npm run build. Key. No. Oh, we white screen. There's. So there's our login form, but we still don't have. Every time I restart, it looks like I'm losing local login information. So something to work out at some point. All right, there's my style guide locally. I still have these shadows. I'm still seeing lots of shadows. Never put in shadows. Never put in shadows. Anyway, remove them all. I'm wondering why. So we have reports, we have dashboard reports and settings. Am I getting an error when I click on these? No, I'm not. And I haven't got all my errors showing. There we go. So no errors. Okay, removing the remaining shadow panels. Thank you very much. Okay, we got no more shadows. I feel like these red, black, and brown styles are fine for the moment. Just have a look at what it's using. Yeah, so let's get it to move these styles into like out of HTML, copy out of HTML. Like if we're going to reuse these styles, then how do we want to reuse these styles? So in here we have what are they called? Background paper hard, font black, uppercase, hard paper. I'm actually going to get this palette. So actually what I'm interested in is these buttons here, because those buttons sort of represent different button states. So I'm just going to have a quick look at how they've been. So status tag ready. And then what is this active? What is locked? Status tag is progress. Status tag is waiting. So locked progress. Anyway. Let's just leave that. But is it using it consistently? So like, is this primary action, is this status tag locked? hard action primary. Yeah, so it's got primary. It's got classes for different types of buttons. I want to have a go and have a look at how it's done that. Apps or CSS, hard action. All right, so here are my button styles. I don't know what hard action means technically, but that's fine. That's fine for now. Actually, what I'll do, add inline comment about when to use these styles. Let's see if there's some emergent logic around what the word hard action means. Okay, use hard action for primary command buttons and button-like links that need the app's shared hard edge treatment. So we have a thing, we are hard edged in this style guide. The hard edge style guide, sure. My ultimate goal with the style guide is really just to have like a well-defined place where, you know, the app owner, Dan, will be able to update all the styles just, you know, interactively, just using his own LM. So I'm really just trying to keep it, contained and in one, you know, in a nice defined place. I might get sick of Tailwind at some point and replace it just with native CSS, but even that would be easy to do. All right, so where did we get to in our command kit diff? So git add dot, git ci, some style guide cleanups. Sure. Next thing I'm wondering is why these routes not work. So let's copy a relative path there. Copy link. Why do my routes not work? So it's not actually switching. So if I actually just go reports in the UI. Oh, it's pushing me back. Okay. It's pushing me back to the style guide for authentication reasons. So I guess as I start to move forward, I'm going to want to have some controls over, like, I guess I want to start thinking about user management, and I'm just wondering about how to start working on that. What's the quickest way to have like an authenticated user who is a admin user? Maybe without overcooking it, I'm not sure. I might start with the setting. I really would like to have my just non-Google login working as well. Okay, so okay, let's just have a look at where my JavaScript lives for authentication purposes. So I have my routes, that's defining my routes. I have a main.js and I have lib and have auth. Right, that's good. I see the auth in there. And so do we have anything to do with like admin? Is allowed email, is owner. Can't think of any other word other than administrator. So let's get it to add an admin function, and we'll make my email an admin. So let's come back up to here. Okay, so in the auth.js, add a method is admin, and this should return true if the user email is simon@hobbs.id.au. Let's kick that off. So what I'm doing is I'm just placeholding a more comprehensive way of determining whether someone's admin or not. Pretty much so I can start working on it. But the ultimate goal, what I want to do is I want to set up editing of users. So I want to be able to edit myself, see my details update, and then flag that I'm an admin user in the back end. But for the moment, I just kind of want to have like a place, like sort of a stub method for that. What do I want to do with this? So the routes for reports. So all of the routes except login and what was the other one? Style guide should require admin access. So I've sort of set it up to kind of go, hey, I don't really care how you implement this, and I'm hoping that it's going to be using the agent's information for Firebase to set up the right like user administration checks. I'll look at what it does, and then I will go and see if I feel like that's the correct way to do it, or a good way to do it, or a bad way to do it. More likely, is it a bad way to do it? So the app already had a simple path guardian app.svelte, so it currently distinguishes protected and restricted paths, and I am checking the route definitions now so the admin gating can happen in one place. Intuitively, I feel like the routes should get a, is admin path setting in the routes.js. There's is admin path. So path normalize is login path or not, right? So its check is to determine if it's login, if it's these specific paths, which obviously that'll expand further with more detail later. Is protected path is not, if it's not a login path, it's a protected path. So yeah, so this is a little bit, I don't know, this is a little bit janky, but there's plenty of time to update that. Okay, done. Admin only routing. So now I should be able to refresh here, and I should be able to go to reports. Okay, here's my reports. Hosting stability, deployment health access request. So this is a placeholder. We have a settings page. Role is administrator. Interesting. Haven't done anything about where this is being saved yet, so let's ignore that for the moment. Dashboard, right. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff. So what do we want to do next? We want to see a list of users, because one of the primary tasks will be, okay, I have these staff. So we want to create a staff page in our sidebar. And at this point, I will, in the next video, I'll bring back up actually I can bring up the app now. So if I had to go into, there's my Pontify old, and I run, run dev, if I remember correctly. Okay, it's starting up my application. Hopefully that started fine and I can just look at it. Okay, so this is the old app. This is the current prototype app. Again, you would have seen in previous videos. I just switched to English version, click on administration. So we want to start duplicating a lot of these tasks, at least where they're obvious. We want to do obvious stuff first. But what we want to do is put employees, and employees will just be a list of users at the moment. So we're going to be getting, all staff are going to be authenticating with like a Gmail account unless we decide otherwise, unless we decide to put in manual username and password, because they're not, because later when we add like fingerprint scanning for the staff and things like that in the kiosk, like a lot of that won't really matter so much. So really what the approach we'll take at the moment is that anyone who is in the system is an employee, and some of those employees are admins. So let's start by just duplicating this employees tab, and I'll go back here, and so I want to commit what I've got. because it's kind of a little bit of a, I'll make sure it's committed. Is it committed? Git. Okay, so I added the route, I added the admin, added basic admin check. All right, next is to do this. All right. Create a new route. It is called employees. On the employees page, I want to list all of the users in the system because they effectively are employees, regardless of whether those users are local users or Google Cloud, like Google login users, Google Workspace users. They simply list the display name and the email and whether they're verified or not. Okay, just while that runs, jump back over to here, and I kind of wondering which way to go. Some of this stuff I'm probably not going to build at all. Terminals. I mean, the idea of this is premature, I believe, because essentially this app, there's going to be one kiosk on a Surface Pro, and it's going to be logged in, but acts more like a point of sale app where a cafe worker will put in a PIN, but they're going to use a fingerprint, and it identifies them, checks them in essentially if they've started work for their shift, and but also might show some information, some basic information that's not overly sensitive, and then it will lock up after a little while. So there's the kiosk, and then there's the admin backend, which would be accessed from anywhere. So I think the terminals is the idea of the terminals, and if you think that the Dan who did the vibe coding for this, in his mind, this is an application you can install in a cafe with multiple terminals. So that's fine, but does it have any practical use if all the terminals are the same at the moment? I know in Shopify you have multiple, like in Shopify it shows you all of the different, point of sale logins. It says, hey, you're running on iPad 1 and iPad 2 and and it tells you when they locked up last. And so that's the kind of thing that we would be showing, is like who recently, accessed it, when did it last get used. But we're not using these terminals for point of sale in the cafe. It's mostly for staff to say, hey, I've turned up for work, or hey, I'm leaving. So I'm not sure how much value, and I don't think I would even, so I wouldn't even be building something like this yet. So we really have to sort of play, and ironically, a lot of these things are sort of fleshed out of the sort of functionality that he wants, not necessarily the functionality that he needs or needs to have in the short term. So we're really focusing on functionality that can be used immediately. Okay, we're local again. Has it finished? Oh, did I lose my task? Oh, okay. While I was just yakking away. So we've got a few out of the box routes. Let's just see how they map back to the application. There's going to be a settings page. So again, a lot of this is exploratory. Security events, like I'll really have to get into some of this stuff and go, is this practically going to apply anywhere yet? He's running a cafe in Rio. Is there a security camera that he's tracking or logging? Sure. Pilot. pilot data. Again, compact rollout status, unresolved issues, pilot validation data. I'm not sure what pilot means in this context yet. So that's going to be local holidays and dates and so forth. Will that show which users and shifts? I don't think so. I think that would be scheduling. So scheduling will be, shifts. That's going to be really interesting because here we're really getting like close to the line of reinventing the wheel for this type of application. Like I kind of don't, we're trying to create an application here that's extremely customized to a single business. But when you're talking about scheduling, then it's a solved problem. So, we'll get to it. We will build it because the idea is Dan wants to then take over and he wants to hyper customize it to his business. Competencies will be I think in theory it's like not going to apply to his team highly because he's going to have a dozen staff. He knows what each of them does. The floor manager is going to be putting people on shifts, knowing what they do. And the idea of this is about scale. It's about what happens when you've got a few stores and you've got staff rotating. So let's start with this. Let's start with some of this stuff like this, get some of this dashboard and stuff up. Get some of we want to get this same framework up so that it looks and feels like this. Our new app looks and feels like this app. And then we're going to then switch to, so we really want to get all of the staff in the system. And when staff are in the system, we really want to get them logging into the back end and also like logging in for the day using the fingerprint scanner and the kiosk mode. So they're going to be our top priorities: kiosk mode, staff onboarding, and staff self-management. Okay, here is my employees tab. It says no users found, but okay, I'm on my local, and if I go to the emulator suite, so how come I'm not showing up if Firebase auth users? Okay, so I'm going to ask that question. If I'm logged in, I'm currently logged in, but I'm not showing up in the user directory. So I'm currently logged in, but I'm not showing up in the user directory. What is it asking me to do? It's asking me to update the log file. So let's do that. PNPM build. PNPM up. That's fine. Okay, verified PNPM run build passes, syntax passes. Okay, they pass correctly. All right, how come I'm not showing up, please? The current page only renders what API employees returns. What's API employees? Is that something it's built custom? Routes, components. Where is API employees? Is that something that Svelte does? Dashboard. Oh, these are all empty now. I can delete this folder. And functions, index. Okay, so now I'm showing, but what did it do to make me show? Okay. Okay. What is employees.js? I'm just going to look at this before we finish for the day. Employees.js. Response. API employees. So what is API employees? Where does API employees even go? Is a Firebase hosting rewrite I added in Firebase JSON. Interesting. Rewrites. It's rewriting API employees to a function ID called employees and cloud function called employees. So I'm going to... So obviously when I might leave this for now. I feel like it's being a little bit preemptive of an architecture, but what we want to do is we want to start storing employee information in Firestore. So we're going to have, for each employee, it's going to have, like, effectively it's going to have a JSON or file, or however file store stores it. I'm pretty sure it's JSON. And so we're doing this NoSQL solution where we're going to save and load employee information out of those files. And perhaps that's where this is going, or perhaps this is a forked pathway of like architecture. But we will get that. We'll get to that. But I think the main thing I wanted to do there was I wanted to see me in there, and as we go along, we'll add different users of different types in there, and should be able to see them. Also, I want to be able to stub out all the different employee users really quickly, and I also want to fix getting local email password users to log in. So for this video, my name is Simon or Simesy, and my company is FreeSource. And yep, these are very, very long-winded videos, and I really, if you watched all of this, then congratulations. I hope you're getting something out of it, because yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I'll see you in the next video.